is that time of the program when Amber typically talks about some hot picks, and today the focus is going to be on some healthcare names. Our next guest highlighting some of the ways it can provide some diversification to your portfolio. Robert Moffat is a portfolio manager at Middlefield Group. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And I know there's some themes out there that you're exploring today, but just in terms of that diversification, I think people hear that all the time, but generally speaking, what would you say about how healthcare can play a role there?
Yeah, so healthcare is definitely a diversified sector in itself. You have certain companies that have growth characteristics, certain companies that have value or defensive characteristics, high dividends. But investing in the sector as a whole really does give you some diversification. And then I think what's important for Canadians to recognize is that we really don't have a healthcare sector in our Canadian market. It's less than 1% of the TSX, whereas it's about 15% of the S&P 500. So just by investing in healthcare, that does give you some diversification outside of Canada as well.
We were saying earlier, investing in the publicly traded healthcare stocks here is, in many ways, you're sort of investing in some of the cannabis sector.
Correct.
Okay, so diversification even within the healthcare group. What's the theme of some of your picks today, broadly speaking?
Yeah, so today I'm focusing on an area that's probably more classified as a growth theme, and it's definitely one of the most exciting and fast-growing areas of healthcare in general, and that's in diabetes and obesity. So the first stock that I wanted to highlight is a company called Novo Nordisk. They make a drug called Ozempic. I'm sure that you or a lot of our listeners have probably heard of Ozempic. Ozempic was initially indicated for treating type 2 diabetes. The drug launched in 2017. And that drug, since it launched, has been on an incredible trajectory. Some people are saying it's going to be the best-selling drug of all time. But what it was found out was that Ozempic actually has a very valuable side effect, which is that it also leads to weight loss. So what Novo did was they developed an obesity drug, basically using the same underlying ingredients, but they branded it as a drug called Wegovy. So Wegovy is now indicated for obesity. And I think that's where this story is a little bit underappreciated, is in the obesity category.
Now, you highlighted the growth characteristics of the names today, and certainly looking at this stock performance, I mean, that is quite the upward move. What questions do you start to ask as an investor after we've seen such a leg higher for the stock?
Yeah, I think naturally you have to ask yourself, at what price are you paying for this company? So Novo is trading at about just over 30 times forward price to earnings. So that is certainly an expensive stock. But what you're getting is, high teens growth rate from that. And I think that, if you feel the same way that I do, that this opportunity is underappreciated and that earnings estimates and, projection could move higher, then I think that you're paying a fair price for the growth that you're getting. Okay,
well, another name with some related areas of interest, but sort of different characteristics for the broader business, Eli Lilly.
Yeah, so Eli Lilly is actually Novo's biggest competitor. So I'm saying you should basically own both companies. This market is basically evolving into a duopoly, and Eli Lilly makes a diabetes drug as well that they launched in 2022. So their drug's called Mounjaro. And in trials, it actually showed to have even more effectiveness in reducing weight or in weight loss, up to 23% actually. So Eli Lilly is actually expecting to get their drug approved for obesity later this year. And when that's up and running, you're going to be looking at two companies that are competing quite fiercely, but I think it makes a lot of sense to own both stocks. And Eli Lilly, unlike Novo, has pulled back quite a bit from its recent highs. It's off about 10% from the highs. So I think you're getting a great opportunity to buy that stock on a pullback.
Is it common within investing in this sector for people to do what you just said, to look at who are the key players in one area and almost hedge by having a stake in both?
I think that is common, and really my thesis here is predicated on the category. So, I mean, the diabetes population, there's over 500 million people in the world that have type 2 diabetes. It's estimated that 40% of Americans are obese. So we're talking patient populations in the hundreds of millions of people. And these are two companies that give you direct exposure to that opportunity. So, I really do think it makes a lot of sense to own both and kind of hedge your bets there.
Okay, and then a third name that you wanted to flag today is Dexcom.
Yeah, so Dexcom is also a diabetes company, but it's actually more specific to the type 1 population. So people with type 1 diabetes, they can't produce insulin with their pancreas, so they rely on insulin injections to get the insulin they need. And in order to know that they're taking the right amount and knowing when to take it, they need to know what their blood glucose levels are. So what Dexcom makes is a device that you put on your arm. It's called a continuous glucose monitor, or a CGM. And that allows people with diabetes to monitor their blood glucose levels in real time, which is basically a game-changing technology that allows them to live a much more free lifestyle than they would have otherwise been able if they're relying on finger pricks, for example.
Well, I was thinking of a company that was making a value proposition to a lot of people that turned out to be not a real company at all, and people can go and look at all the documentaries that have been written, but basically the promise of that being actually materialized in the Dexcom story. I should mention, I mean, we were talking off camera, you look at the S&P over the last decade, this is one of the top 10 performers over that period of time.
Correct. It has definitely been a very successful stock, and it's similar to Lilly. It's even bigger, the pullback that you've seen in this stock. So this is really an area that has secular growth trends behind it. Dexcom is probably a mid-teens, high teens grower.
So before I let you go, obviously there's this macro backdrop right now. Where do we go? A lot of uncertainty in the air. What are the considerations on that part that you have to factor in? Or to your point, are you just playing the longer trend here and you're committed to these kind of names over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'm definitely committed to these names over the next few years. I think these are, all three of these stocks should be core holdings in any healthcare portfolio. In terms of the macro backdrop, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And as you know, stocks that have higher valuations, they have further to fall when the market goes south. But, opportunistically, I would certainly look to add to these names on a pullback. I wouldn't push all my chips in today, but, these really are companies that are going to be around for a long time and growing for a long time.
Robert, good to have you with us. Appreciate the time today.
Thanks.
Robert Moffat joining us, portfolio manager at Middlefield Group.